Now, presenting to you our keynote speaker for RSG, a veteran of the IT industry, a successful entrepreneur with a vision to empower individuals to succeed as job creators, a hardcore database engineer, and a persistent human being, Dr. Anand Deshpande, founder, chairman, and managing director of Persistent Systems. We are truly honored to host him at the conference. With due respect, may I call Dr. Anand Deshpande to come on the stage and give us insights through his journey. Thank you.
Yeah, let me make sure. So those of you who are wearing blue shirts, thank you for all the work you do. But you can sit down. You don't have to be standing all through. So why don't you grab a chair, and there are some of them around. First, thanks a lot for inviting me here. I never miss an opportunity to talk to programmers. And I like talking to them, and when I'm talking to programmers, I feel I should talk about programming and other such things rather than other management geek stuff. So I thought I'd give you a little bit of a history of various things. I guess I must be one of the oldest person in this room who has worked in this area the longest. Okay, so I'm going to share a little bit about some of the work I do. So one of the big principles of Agile is, of course, that you should reuse your slides. So I had done a presentation about 2 years back in March 2021 to celebrate 20 years of Agile. Okay? And I thought it would be good to reuse that and make it the 22nd year of Agile and talk a little bit about the history of Agile, how did it happen, and all of that. I have no chance that any of you would have seen this presentation before, but just to make sure, have any of you seen my 20-year back the presentation I made 2 years back? No, right? So it's very safe, so one should reuse slides. This is an old photo, meaning this photo is fairly new. This is from my 60th birthday party, which happened in May in 2022. So those guys who see on them, they were my colleagues at HP Labs when I worked there in 89-90. And at that point, I was actually doing software engineering environments and working in the SIGSoft community. And one of my, at HP, we acquired a company called Apollo, which had one of the greatest software engineering environments called Dizzy. And eventually, the founders of that group went off to start ClearCase, Atria, became Rational, and all that stuff that happened around that software engineering field. The guy in the middle, the fellow, so between me and Jim Ambrose, that guy's name is Tuan Pham. He used to be with me as well. He went on to be the CTO and founder of Uber. And he has written some good stuff online as well about the Uber technology and all of that. So pretty nice setup. We met after many years, so this was the photo that we took from there. So as I said, 22nd anniversary of Agile, all of you are familiar, and this got mentioned in the thing, was, the whole movement started with this big event that happened in the Snowbird ski resort in Utah, and 17 experts signed this between 11th and 13th of February in 2001. So this is sort of considered to be the start of the Agile movement. Now the question is, I'm sure you're familiar with this manifesto, the Agile Manifesto. There are these 12 things that they talk about, and I'm sure you all have this by heart and you talk a lot about this. But the question here is that we've been coding since 1950s, okay? And this lady, Margaret Hamilton, she's credited with the term software engineering. And this happened in 1965. So the question is, if programming has been happening since 1950s, we've always had software engineering since 65 onwards, why did we need to worry about the Agile Manifesto in 2001? Meaning, why was it necessary to think about Agile Manifesto in 2001, and why was Agile so important, or where did it come from, and all of that kind of stuff. So really, I'm going to share with you a little bit about my history with software engineering, and also with what happened in the past, is to leading to why 2001 was important, why did people have to do this whole Agile Manifesto business. So if you look at the Apollo program, it's considered a major success in a way. but there are horror stories of poorly documented software, poorly written software from the 60s and 70s. One of the examples of people when they talk about is, again, I'm going to share a story with Fortran as the language that was used for this particular one. So there was a particular program which was written because of a missing comma. The actual missile went into the sea at a very short distance. And the reason that happened was that, I don't know if any of you have written Fortran? Any of you familiar with it? Very few, okay? So the do loop or the for loop that you have in Fortran, there is basically you start with A, comma B, which means that you write the first character, first number, so from 1 to 10. So you write this as saying from I to J, whatever. Now the thing is, in Fortran, the blank spaces are not relevant in Fortran. So if you miss the comma and just missed it, then the two numbers actually become, if you had 1, comma 10, and you miss the comma, it would become 1 with space 10. It will be read as 110, and you can get an assignment out of that instead of a loop. And you went in, so instead the loop completely got missed out and you got an assignment, and the program behaved pretty badly, right? So there are lots of disasters that were very common between the 60s and 70s. How many of you have read any of these books? Are you familiar with Don Knuth? No? I think you guys are missing something. This guy is really the father of these kinds of books. He has done amazing work. He used to be at Stanford. He passed away recently. But he has, he's well known for this book that he wrote, books that he wrote starting 68, called The Art of Computer Programming. So at that point, computer programming was considered an art, not a science or engineering. And how many of you have read this particular book called The Mythical Man Month from Fred Brooks? Are any of you familiar with it? Highly recommend it. It's one of those classics. It was first written as an essay in 1975. And his point of view was that, by adding people to a delayed project, you only delay it further. So that's one of his maxims that he writes about. There are many other stories in this particular book. He used to be at IBM when he wrote this particular book. And then he went on to University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where he became a professor for some years. And he has written some amazing things, but his point is that the average software project overshoots its schedule by half. And they were comparing this with hardware. Hardware by then was quite well evolved. The technology was pretty good. Chips were being made in a very robust way, but software was not very successful. So half the development projects were operational but not successful. 3/4 of software products are failures or do not meet customer requirements. Does this sound very familiar to you? So have we really evolved is a good question, but how many project overruns are you part of? I'm not sure, but this is what was written in, this article is from 1987 and the book is from 1975, okay? So worth reading. Now in the early 80s, the poor quality of software was attributed to lack of agreement on requirements. Because we don't agree on requirements, we don't have good quality software. That was the belief. And it was very obvious, and I'm sure you have seen this, that if you are able to find bugs early in the system, early in the life cycle of the development process, then the cost of fixing that is much lower than when you try to fix it later on. So if there is an existing system and you have to fix a bug, it can take much longer, it takes much longer to patch it, and then the whole process of making sure that it has been incorporated can be fairly complicated. So trying to get those bugs early would be very important. So that was one of the observations. So this resulted into the waterfall model, which I'm sure you have all heard of, if not, if you don't use it, but at least I'm sure you're very familiar with it. So the idea here was, let's make sure that every stage that you have in the process has a clear sign-off, because the problem is if we don't have agreement on requirements, then you are getting bad quality software. If you want to improve the results that you want to get, then you must actually get sign-off. So the idea was that you have a sign-off on requirements, you have a design discussion, you design the product and get the sign-off on design, then you get a sign-off on development, sign-off on testing. You move the product from development to testing, and then testing happens. And then similarly, maintenance is a sign-off. And Department of Defense had many fat volumes of books on exactly this particular process, and very elaborately written down things. And IEEE also has some guides from this period. And if you looked at those guys, when we used to have many of these with us in our printed form as well in our library, they were fairly fat books, this fat, maybe 4 inches, 3 inches fat books that you would get that described how the DoD process was on how this particular thing had to happen. And that was the standard process of how people looked at this whole requirements to various other things, all right? Windows, which was shipped by Microsoft, actually was plagued with bugs and stability issues for many years. So Windows, they launched first version in 85. They've been working on it since 85. And it took them almost, as it sees, 8 years to get the Windows version 3.1 to be stable. They announced version 3.0 in, I think, 89, 90. And then for the next 3 years, they were fixing bugs till it became Windows 3.1. Windows NT, the first 32-bit operating system that Windows shipped, was again delayed by almost 4 years. And we benefited at Persistent from this particular change, because what happened, and I'll share another story with you. This is from 92. And what happened was that Microsoft had committed to ship their Fortran compiler, which was called Microsoft Power Station 32. And that was the first 32-bit product that they were going to ship. Now, Windows 3.1 was a 16-bit process based on 16-bit. And I don't know if you're familiar with the world, but at that point, 16-bit Windows ran on a 640 KB memory. And anything which had more memory, you had to do DOS extender and a whole bunch of other things. So I'm sure none of you have tried writing code in that period. But writing was very tricky because memory management on the DOS Windows 3.1 environment was very complicated. So when they were trying to ship this 32-bit thing, they decided they wanted to have the 32-bit Fortran compiler, which was supposed to ship on NT, which was a 32-bit operating system. But NT got delayed and it never happened in time. But they were forced to ship the Fortran 32. And they realized that they did not have the graphics libraries ready for it. So they were in 16-bit and they needed to move it to 32-bit. And for some reason, they had forgotten that that was important, and all kinds of stuff happened. And I happened to show up, and they said, okay, will you port this 16-bit to 32-bit for us? I said, yeah, sure, we'll do it. And that was the first project we got from Microsoft in 92, okay? And we have worked with Microsoft ever since, almost 32, 33 years of relationship with Microsoft, pretty much because of the delays in their NT Pro platform. And you know who was running testing for NT? A guy called Soma, and Satya was a part of that team. Okay, so this is like long back. Microsoft again then decided that this is not good, so they spent a lot of time and energy trying to improve their software processes around the time NT shipped. And they had this professor from MIT, Michael Cosomano. He came and spent almost 6 months to a year just studying what is happening and wrote this quite a fantastic book. I spent, this was in 93, no, 95, 96 is when I read this book in great detail. It's an amazing book about how Microsoft's software engineering processes are set up. NT was actually very hard for the people in Microsoft. There are lots of books written about the life of programmers or the management team or the team that was involved in writing NT, because a lot of those guys really worked all the time and they just couldn't get it out in time, and there was a lot of fire and lots of casualties in different ways. So they really spent a lot of time and they came back with this. And they had a very unique development architecture in some sense, which was very different from any other company that we work with, including IBM and others. Microsoft had this program manager category, who was a fairly young person who was responsible for shepherding the activities of the group. So very different from the project manager or the overall PUM, as they call it, the product unit manager. I'm sure you have seen these books. These were the books that came out around that time after Microsoft decided, okay, we're going to figure this out. We should standardize things. We should write solid code. Was a pretty popular book. Rapid development, and all of these books sort of happen around that time. So these are all books from the late 90s. I was very influenced by these two books, I must say. I really liked the way Tom Gilb writes his books. This was a book from 1988. Called The Principles of Software Engineering and Management. And he talks about the evolutionary software as an approach that he uses. So unlike Agile and all that, he uses an evolutionary model. And he shows a model where you start implementing and you keep doing these circles around the product and you get better quality things. And again, this is a pretty dated book, but this is an amazing book as well. So this is a book from Black & Decker called Developing Products in Half the Time. And these guys talk about not necessarily software, but they talk about how they built products for Black & Decker. I'm sure you're familiar with Black & Decker. They make tools and other such things. And how they were able to build products in half the time. And this is again a very nice book. I highly recommend that as well. And the other sort of well-known person in this time was a gentleman called Watts Humphreys. He wrote a book called Software Processes, which was again the Bible of people writing code at that time. These are all how do you put the software together. Now, Watts Humphreys was part of the Software Engineering Institute at Carnegie Mellon. Okay? And he was one of the key persons in making the software engineering CMM kind of stuff, right? So I'm sure this came out in 96, and all of you are probably familiar with the CMM. How many of you are part of CMM5 organization? So quite a few of you. Well, not that many, I guess. But yeah, so this is something that I'm sure you're familiar with. But this happened in 1996 from CMU. Now, the most interesting thing that happened for India was that NASSCOM at that point was looking for something to hang their quality hat on, because they realized that, you know, if India wanted to be an important player in this whole market, then we need to make sure that the quality of software that we deliver is considered world-class and all of that stuff. So what NASSCOM decided is that let's pick on CMM5 as a way to go about it. And then they encouraged all companies to go after CMM5. And Motorola India Software was the first CMM5 certified company. Of course, it's Motorola division in India. And then Infosys was one of the first ones to get themselves certified in the late 90s. And this book by Pankaj Jalote, who is right now at IIIT Delhi, is once considered a pretty nice book in terms of the number of, he talks a lot about how, so he used to be a professor at IIT Kanpur. And then he went and spent a year at Infosys during the period of this CMM work, and he was involved in that, and he wrote a book on it. This book is actually very practical and is a very nice book to use to if you want to go about it. So we tried working on this for a while, but somehow we were not able to make this work for the reason that we realized that in 2001 we should differentiate ourselves, and instead of trying to do IT and IT projects and IT sourcing, we decided we should call ourselves outsourced product development rather than doing IT. And I'll explain this as different being, so we said that we do not follow the SDLC, which is the software development lifecycle, which was commonly used for various things, but we said we follow the product development lifecycle. Now, what is the difference between SDLC and PDLC? We think that SDLC is you have well-defined requirements and you do trade-off between time and money. That's how most IT projects were built at that point. So it says, okay, I know what I'm going to do. I want to implement this ERP. That's a well-defined requirement, and then you go ahead and implement it. But when you do product, the first thing people decide is when you want to ship the product, then you decide how much you want to spend on it, and you build the best possible product within the time and money. So this is very much the iterative cycles that we are trying to use. And we realized that in our process model, what you build actually was a variable in a sense. What was fixed was the time. So you would say, okay, what will you deliver from the next 3 months, and so on. And we were signing projects like that. Now, when you look at CMM, you are optimizing on artifacts. So you should know what you are building and say, every time I do this, I'll do it better and faster. Now, when you are able to do that with requirements in the waterfall or the models, CMM actually works very well. But CMM had no ability to handle the fact that we want time to be constant, not requirements to be constant. So how do I improve productivity and get to optimization when I'm trying to do that? They didn't really have a way to do it. So I broke my head with a couple of consultants for a while, and I said, forget it, man, this is not going to work. Nobody is asking me for CMM5. So we never did it till 2018 or so, because then we were doing one government project and they had a requirement that you need to be CMM5. So one small center became CMM5. Most of our customers were never CMM5, but CMM5 became the moniker for everything India really went all out. We had hundreds of CMM5 companies. So by 2001, as I said, the software companies were dominated by process groups, okay? People were just had requirements documents, this document, your submission on RFPs must be this, that, and other things. So very, very process driven, okay? And the manifesto actually was an attempt to bring the focus of the process to the most important three things, which is individuals, interactions, and software. Okay, because companies had moved completely in the other direction where everybody was just focused on the process of things, right? And again, these are the same 12 but written in a simpler way. So they said we'll focus on individuals and interactions over process and tools. We'll work with software. As a working software is the documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and then responding change without, rather than following a plan. So this is how the world changed around 2001. Now, as you see over the years, people went around creating their own frameworks. If you look at the wiki page, and I looked at it again, it has not changed in 2 years. But these are all the various frameworks that you will see, and lots of different practices all relating to Agile. So everyone talks about the same thing, but they actually have lots of these now. And you can choose the flavor you want. Again, creates one more set of confusion because now you can decide which one to use and how you might want to think about it. So we've been at Persistent following this scaled Agile framework because I find that that's at least one standard one. It works well with large teams. And we had a good relationship with the folks at SAFe. So we decided, okay, let's just use SAFe as a way to go about it. So much has changed in the 20 years. I should have said 22 years. But this is reuse of the slide there. So one was that every business is a software-driven business. That was one change that happened in 2011. This is a very famous article written by Mark Andreessen. And Mark Andreessen said that software is eating the world. And this is very significant in the following way. So till then, and when we were selling in the market, we would realize that the product companies were a different world from the IT companies. IT people use the software products, and software product companies were building products. What Mark Andreessen went ahead and said is that every company needs to become a software business. So all of a sudden, the banks started to say, oh, we are building products. It went to the extent that Domino's Pizza CEO in a meeting that he had on shareholders said that we are a software business. Anybody can do pizza. We do better software. That's why we are a greater company. So this became really the hot thing. Everybody was trying to do this. Now this 2 pizza is not related to the same definition. This is a different 2 pizza set. This one is coming from Amazon, where Amazon said that, we should have, collaboration should be tight, and we should not have teams that are bigger than 2 pizza teams. So everybody who's working together should happen. And of course, we got better abstractions and, improved automation, effort started to become better, and AI will be everywhere. This was sort of what I said a few years back. I said it's on the runway, one of these days it will take off. But I sort of removed that line. Looking ahead, I find that when I see so many of you here in the Agile conference, I find that again, maybe we have swung the pendulum back to Agile processes being the process part of it. And you may have forgotten a little bit about writing code and worrying about interactions and all of these things. So I thought I'd remind you that the reason you exist was because people wanted to dilute or kill all the process stuff. But I'm sure now that you are all here, you have created them back again. So you might want to relook at, do you really want to go after the processes like maniacs, or do you want to focus on the artifacts, the people, and the energy that happens by building software? So, as Agile evolved, as you know, we have gone through these different phases. First thing that happened was people realized that, okay, this dev and test, why should they be separate teams? Why should we have people who are just test people as different from dev people? And again, this whole concept that requirements are not clear or not happening. So can we merge these two into one? So let's not have 2 different kinds of groups, but we'll have just one kind of group working together. And that's how DevOps happened. And then you say, I'm going to break the walls between different things. So I don't want to have just testers who are testing. I want developers to be also testing. And I want developers and testing to work together. So this whole Microsoft used to have this concept of SDET. Basically, they had lots of test people all over the place. And many companies had created this whole independent validation, verification teams, test teams, or you throw the software across the wall and then somebody else is going to test it because developers and tests should be different. The DevOps community completely destroyed that idea. Said, no way, we cannot do this. We should have dev and test to be together. Tests are also developers, and we should make this happen in a big way. And then operations also became part of this. So DevOps became development, testing, and operations. And they said, instead of having programmers who write code and then you have people who don't understand code but are supposed to use functional requirements and test it, I think that kind of stuff doesn't work. We need to have tests which are automated so that you can run them continuously. And operations should really be part of this, because if there is a problem in operations, the developer needs to fix his code to ensure that it works properly. And the ops people should know what is happening with the development side. So that's how that happened. And of course, now security can't be left out. So you now have DevSecOps, all of them sort of together. So the whole world has changed in this model, where now people are not anymore, oh, I'm a tester, I'm a developer. You have to be an engineer that can handle all aspects of it, rather than be restricted to only one part of it. So this whole concept of manual testers and all have gone. I'm the automation engineer. Those things have all gone now. You are pretty much an engineer who are part of a team, and you have to do all the things that are needed. And people have seen significant efficiency of this. Now, as this was starting to happen, Google and such companies actually went further ahead, and they decided, okay, why do I need to have this DevOps and all that stuff? I want to relook at everything, and they went after something called Site Reliability Engineering, which is SRE. And the idea in SRE was, they said, let's just use all our programmers to make sure that they are doing the testing and operations and everything else. Anything that requires manual intervention should be automated. So I must have code for that. And everything should be only automated. There should be nothing that happens through manual intervention. There'll be no manual installation. Nothing will be manual. And you are the best programmers at Google. You go figure it out, how to make this happen so that we can get really good quality setup, operations and everything else, and no manual intervention. So that's what happened. And I'm sure you guys have looked at this. And I must go ahead and say that, if you look at the top 20 software companies in the US, like Google and all of them, and you look at the software engineering processes for those guys, or the quality of the number of people that are needed in running, say, an Azure or a Google Cloud and all that, you'll be shocked to see how efficient they are. And if you look at them as compared to those who are like not in the top 20, but let's say top 100 or top 500, you will see that their data centers and their operations, there's a 2-order to 3-order improvement that people at Google and Microsoft have been able to make by really relooking at the whole process through a very different kind of lens, saying, how do I automate every single thing? No, if there is a call, it should go to the engineer, not to some person who is going to then pick up the call up few people and do that. And no engineer likes to get call at night. So you should not get the call. You should have the reliability set up so that if it's going to fail, have a failover mechanism. So code really happened in a big way to make sure that you are able to accept failure as normal, have ways of balancing failure and go around failure. I mean, if it's going to fail, you make sure that you are able to protect against those failures. Now, of course, AI has come into SRE and everywhere else, and AI has helped make this happen in a much bigger way. Now I can automate, I can measure, I can look at many of these things and increase efficiency because of AI. This was a claim I made 2 years back, okay? That says, okay, this is a 20-year claim, but now I want to just change that and remove that 20 to 2-year claim. Okay, in the last 2 years, AI will change everything the way we create. Everyone will code, and most of us will code with very little code. This is starting to happen already. And most code that you will see in the future will actually get generated rather than be written by people, right? So this is really happening in a big way. So I'm sure you guys are in the mix of all of this. The next frontier, though, I believe is that requirements. This whole problem that requirements and other things are not quite clearly defined, and there's a lot of confusion about it. What has happened over the years is that the speed at which we are building or how we are building has made it possible to get from requirement to results relatively quickly. So we can turn that around very fast. Now what we find is that how do I specify requirements still continues to be a big problem in my opinion. So if I can state what I'm looking for, then building it is much easier. But how do I say what I'm looking for, right? So that is a good opportunity for research in case you want to look at how can we specify, how we meaning not programmers, if I'm building a system for medical doctors, they should be able to specify what they are looking for and automatically code should get generated, right? So that's sort of where I think the next interesting thing will happen. I think there is a now opportunity that I was mentioning already that, as I said, through SRE and others, the large number of these top 20 companies have really improved their operations and development in a very big way. So I think there is an opportunity to take that kind of discipline and capabilities to hundreds and thousands of companies. I think that's a good opportunity for this community to think about. This is my last slide, and I will stop here and take questions. I think I'm doing well.
Yes.
So we are where I had planned 30 minutes that I would use for this.
Thank you.
I hope you found this useful. And as you go through your thing, there are some references about the past that you would not have seen. So I thought it'd be good for you to know. Okay, thank you.
Sir, thank you so much. When I was speaking to Manoj, Manoj told me that sir would like to speak about agility. And I was thinking कि agility पे sir क्या बोलेंगे? And basically a lot of people knows about it, but now I got to know there is a lot of things that is the depth of real agility and technology that coming into picture. So thank you so much, sir. If at all you do not know, last financial year, Persistent achieved $1 billion revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my question is, sir, 0 to $1 billion in roughly 33 years?
Yeah.
I have seen your videos and you have always said that I never knew that this company gonna be seeing someday like that way years back. So what are your views and would like to know about it from you and the agility aspect of it?
No, so again, when you're running a startup in 1990, when I started the business, the situation in 1990 for just software was very difficult. Most of you, I'm sure, were born after that, so you may not be aware. But life in India at that point, whether it was communication facilities or anything else, it was very, very difficult. India, the total amount of software that we did export from India in 1990 was about $30 million. Okay, and the fact that when we started with 350 square feet in a place where Software Technology Park had been identified to be 8,000 square feet. So imagining to say that we knew always that we were going to get $1 billion would not have been a realistic assumption. Even India at $30 million couldn't have imagined $1 billion industry for themselves, leave alone me saying that we are going to be $1 billion. So the industry now is about $310 billion. And I've seen the benefit, or I've had a good chance of being part of the industry from 30 million to 300 billion now. So yeah, it happens incrementally. And as you get to the next level, you have to reimagine your next goals. And this is what I tell everyone as well, is that business growth is a sequence of S curves. So you do certain things, you see growth for a certain number of years. And if you keep doing the same thing, it stops growing after that. And you will realize that within your own business. And then you got to do different things. So what may have worked for you in the first orbit doesn't work in the second. What works in the second doesn't work in the third. So I think every individual needs to reinvent themselves on an ongoing basis. Companies need to reinvent themselves continuously, because if they don't reinvent themselves, they get stranded. So yeah, it's an iterative process. In that sense, it's very agile that you can't make plans for 30 years at a time. You have to make short-term plans and keep growing at them.
Sir, thank you. From your entrepreneurial journey, any suggestions or hints for the people working inside the organization, that is entrepreneurs?
Yeah, get out of it, do your own business.
And so you said about AI a lot. You are a data science PhD, long.
I'm a database PhD. Yeah.
Database PhD,
We didn't call it data science at that time.
Yeah, okay. So from your experiences, people, I know a lot of people who are afraid of, because of the AI, what's going to happen to their job. What are your suggestions from your own experience?
Yeah, so I think, AI is not going to kill your job. Other people who know AI are going to kill your job. So let me explain that, okay? Those people who use AI will become more efficient, more productive, and more effective as compared to those who don't use AI. So if you use AI, you will be a productive engineer, and you will be more productive than other people who are not using AI or not using it as well. So all the productive people will always do well. Those who are very efficient, can do things very quickly, very effectively, they will be fine. They will make things happen because they'll use AI to do all this stuff. Those who are not using AI will not have work to do because other people will do the work for you. So I don't believe AI is going to kill your job. It's the people who know AI who are going to kill your job. So if you want to be the one killing other people's job, learn all the tools and techniques rather than complain about it. Because those who use will be better off than those who don't. Now the last thing I would mention in this thing is that, one good thing is that, whatever happens, we have more engineers who know AI than anywhere else in the world. So that is one good thing. But yes, it's going to change everybody's life in a big way.
Sure. Thank you. So some questions from audience. Yeah.
Good morning, sir. And a simple question, why the name Persistent? What is the history or the story behind it?
No, it's, yeah. So as I said, I was doing I have a database PhD and I was working in the data related areas. So if you look at systems that are persistent, that are what data systems are. So if you are talking about a database company, persistent systems actually says that you are a data oriented company. And that was the reason for starting with that. But of course, persistent is a nice word in a way. And we were early enough that we could get it. And yeah, meaning it signifies what we think we ought to be. And I really believe in this, that if you want to be successful, being persistent is the most important thing. And that's what helps in our business as well.
Thanks for your knowledge sharing, sir. Yeah, so I just want to know what organization...
Maybe you should share your name and where...
Swapna.
Okay.
I am into the organizational development space.
Okay.
So I just want to know what organizational culture change you witnessed during these changes in the technological field.
Culture evolves. Culture is about what you accept. And it's about the stories that go around and how you behave in various kind of conditions. So what we have found is that, you have to have a clear value system. And you have to ensure and enforce the value systems. Culture happens. You can't create culture. Culture happens. You can't enforce it. Culture is part of the actions that you do. So you have to understand your values and your purpose and act in a way that is aligned to your values and your things, and ensure that the stories that demonstrate that you are doing that are the ones that people share with each other.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
I'm Sandeep. I'm part of Finacle product. And basically there is a thought process moving from a product to a platform. And in terms of agility or in terms of the change that is happening, what would you suggest in terms of transformation or bringing in an agile which is specific for a platform?
I think these are all very sort of fake kind of distributions right now. What is a platform? What is a product? Whether it's a product is a platform. Is platform a product? Is it a service? I think it doesn't really matter. Write good code that is robust and works. And it doesn't matter whether it's a platform or a product. And make lots of money. That's the only thing that matters.
Hello, good morning, sir. This is Yatiraj. I'm from Infosys. My question is, how do you define quality in business terms, and how that quality can be achieved by using business agility?
I think this is a wrong question for this time at the moment. Maybe we are at the last question, so I don't want to really answer this question. Because I think you guys are enough people here who can answer what quality means and all that. So it's not me. Go ahead.
Good morning, sir. It's great to have you here. I am Anurag Bothra. I'm working as a product owner. So my question is, what is the biggest challenge you have faced in your career and how you overcame it?
I think again this is the last question right now. I don't know. See, I really believe that just like you think in Agile, you have incremental challenges all the time. And you have to deal with these small challenges as you keep going on. If you don't deal with your small challenges, they become big challenges. So the key is to sort of every day make sure you keep your challenges manageable and manage them. That's about it. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Anand. The insights you shared for last 22 years of Agile journey from your lens and the lens of organization. And I hope everybody had an opportunity to take clicks of those books which Anand sir has shared in. I would like to request Yogesh Shinde from Bamboo India to felicitate Dr. Anand. Yogesh, there you are.
Can we please have a huge round of applause for them?
We have one entrepreneur to another entrepreneur. Thanks a lot, Yogesh. Thanks, Dr. Anand. I would like to request Dr. Anand to be there for a minute. As a part of Author Katta, from our community, we have authors been available here. And one of the authors is Amar Singh Gaikwad. I will like to bring in Amar here on the stage. And we'll like to, my bad, we'll like to publish the book with from Dr. Anand. Dr. Anand, if you can be here for a minute. Here we have Amar, folks.
Amar is an enterprise agile coach with extensive 17 years of experience within the fintech sector. He's renowned for leading agile transformations across Australia, New Zealand, and the broader APAC region. His authored work, Mastering Agile Leadership, serves as an invaluable source for aspiring agile coaches and professionals.
He has authored work Mastering Agile Leadership, serves as an invaluable resource for aspiring agile coaches and professionals. Thanks a lot, Dr. Anand.
And
Thanks,
congratulations, Amar.
I would like to request Amar to share his journey for how he has been part of a community and being a coach and how he moved to being an author. Over to you, Amar. Thank you. And congrats.
Yeah, thank you, Rahul. And thank you, Anand sir, for doing the honors. Thank you, APGI, for providing me this platform. So why this book, So while working as an agile coach, I was part of many agile transformations. And as a student of Agile, I always wanted to document those learnings so that it can be shared with larger audience. So that's the reason I started writing or documenting my experiences as Agile coach. And the sole purpose of writing this book was to ensure that, the knowledge that I learned as Agile coach should be shared with the larger community. And second thing was to leave a long-lasting legacy as an author. So those were two purposes. And with that, I approached a publication house. They really liked the content. And now the book is available on Amazon, both in ebook and paperback format. And I'm also glad to inform that soon after its release, it has hit the #1 bestseller. So thank you for that. And to me, this Mastering Agile Leadership is not just a book. It's a call for action to leadership at all levels, to embrace the change and to foster a journey of relentless improvement and innovation. So I have my dedicated booth here, and to all the esteemed attendees, as an author, I think this is a responsibility to share the knowledge. So the original cost of this book is 350 rupees, but for esteemed attendees, I have kept it 250. So there are limited copies, and I have my dedicated booth. So do visit to grab your own copy. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Anand. Sorry. Thanks a lot, Amar. Amar, I will request you to be here. We would like to felicitate you. Prasad, I would request you to be here. Thanks a lot,
Audience,
Amar, for
can you
being
please
part
show
of
your
the journey.
energy?
Thanks a lot, Amar. Thanks, Prasad.